Yo, what's up? 2024 has come to an end and it has been quite a year for music. We got many great projects from musicians we know and love, not Playboi Carti, and tons of breakout albums from up-and-coming artists that took the world by storm. And today we're just going to talk about my favorite projects and what I love about them. This list isn't in any particular order, I just enjoy all of these projects pretty much the same, except for maybe like the top two. Those two are in order. And of course, this is simply my opinion. These are just the albums that resonated the most with me throughout the year and I found myself coming back to. There's tons of albums I just didn't get to finish or simply missed out on. I can't rank everything. I'm just highlighting the projects that I personally loved. And if I didn't mention your favorite album in the video, that's because I did it to intentionally anger you. Let me know what your favorite albums were last year and let's get into it. I know you see the length of the video. This is probably the longest video on my channel, and this is a bona fide yap session, so please grab a snack, get cozy, and enjoy. I'm starting off my top 10 with a bit of a niche pick, but if you know me, you know I like my idols in Asian pop music, and this is a project that I really enjoyed. This is Awe by XG. Japanese-based international pop group XG had released their first studio album, and it is such a fun listen. It's jam-packed with tons of cleverly written songs, hitting a few different genres of hip-hop and R&B, and even house and UK garage. Garage? UK garage? Whatever. And the girls have very angelic vocals, hit some beautiful melody lines, and have some very impressive rap performances. I like to cook, so I humble my dinner. My appetite only get bigger and bigger. I think they hit a great balance of youthful and fun energy with a little bit of a punkish counterculture edge. Even their visuals and outfits reflect this. They aren't necessarily trying to be the cool girls or elegant swans, but instead they have these over-the-top animalistic costumes or these glammed up schoolgirl concepts inspired by Japanese gyaru culture, which I think is really cool. And the visuals for their music videos are insane. I've been privy to their music since their debut back in 2022, and I think they really hit their sound the following year with tracks like Left, Right, and Shooting Star. And this new project just doubles down on those singles. It brings more rap breaks, more beautiful vocals, and more of that Y2K pop music influence. Even sampling older Y2K Japanese pop songs to make their Y2K influenced pop music. This project is pretty short too. It's 8 tracks altogether, and 2 of them are skits, so you can knock this out in a lunch break. My only complaint about this album is that I wish the original version of Woke Up was on this and not just the remix with a bunch of rappers on it, but it's not the biggest problem ever. But yeah, if you're a fan of early 2000s neo Y2K pop music and you have 30 minutes to spare, please check out Awe by XG. You won't regret it. My favorite tracks on here were In the Rain, If You Know You Know, and Howling. That's how we howl. At number 9, we're gonna show love to something that surprised me, 100 Gigs by Drake. Metro Boomin and Future's We Don't Trust You. The dynamic duo of the Atlanta trap scene came through with a project that caught everyone by surprise. A hard-hitting, cold-blooded album built with a chip on its shoulder. Future came through with his hypnotic flows and melancholic energy, and Metro absolutely killed the beats, making some incredible dynamic soundscapes with lots of interesting transitions and beat switches, but still having that hard, sinister trap feel that he's known for. That paired with features from Rick Ross, Playboi Carti, Travis Scott, and Kendrick Lamar make this project such a fun listen. Nigga, boom! And I love that they didn't show the features when the album initially came out, so it's pretty fun seeing everyone's reactions during their first listen. Motherfuck the big 3, nigga, it's just big me, nigga. Metro Boomin has been on a killer run for the past few years, dropping these crazy collab albums with so much personality in them. He's really good at making beats that give artists room to shine, but he also makes sure he gives himself time to shine as well. His little beat switches and bridges show me that he knows how to maintain your attention solely through production. And the way songs run into each other and use media excerpts as like interludes, that touch makes these albums feel so cinematic, which makes sense, you know, because like some of these albums were for movies. And Future isn't somebody that I've actually shown that much love to on the channel, but I gotta give him his flowers. He's been at the forefront of trap music for well over a decade now, and made a lane for low-key braggadocio rappers to express their feelings about overindulging in their vices. And if we're being honest, a lot of your favorite rappers wouldn't be here without Future. So Future, here are your flowers. When it comes to reviewing albums as a whole, I think context is very important. And I don't see any other artist making an album called We Don't Trust You and me believing it that much. This project is so special because as listeners, we have a little bit of context about the people that he works with. So when he makes an album called We Don't Trust You and their tagline is, when you pick a side, stay there, I believe it. I don't think anyone else could have made an album like this. And based off of the rest of the music that came out last year, this was kind of like the opening of Pandora's box that led to a lot of people not liking a certain rapper. But yeah, it just shows that Metro Boomin and Future really know how to make their album a moment. Metro Boomin and Future, very cool. Love this. My favorite tracks on here were We Don't Trust You, the intro, Type Shit, and of course, Like That. At number 8, I'm putting an album that was in heavy rotation in the early half of 2024, Schoolboy Q's Blue Lips. This is Schoolboy Q's first full-length album in 5 years. Think about that. Crash Talk came out before COVID. Crash Talk came out the same year as Mood. You guys remember Mood? Like the video and stream Mood if you remember Mood. This album has been on my watch list for a minute because he's been dropping snippets from this album for years, and this project did not disappoint. Schoolboy Q is in peak performance on this project, rapping his ass off from song to song. He's got this nasty, cutthroat delivery and hits some insane flows on these tracks. He spends a lot of the album talking about his success and reaping the benefits of his labor, but there are some more introspective moments on here, like the song Blue Slides, which I enjoy a lot. It's very nice to see an artist grow with their music and mature as a person. He's in a completely different headspace than how we met him back in like Oxymoron. He's got some crazy production on these songs too. Lots of great soul sample flips that has this zany psychedelic vibe to it, and they come in with these crazy hard-hitting basses that are perfect for the more hype tracks. And I love how varied the drums are on some of the songs here, like the song Foe with Ab-Soul and how it incorporated drum and bass drums for a bit, or the track Yearn 101, where the beat is one bass line pattern for more than half the track and the rest of the beat is just claps, but it works so well. But I'm not surprised by this. I think Schoolboy Q has always had a good ear for production. Even his beats that he rapped on 10 years ago still hold up pretty good today. And fun fact, all of Schoolboy Q's album rollouts have him wearing a different type of hat. I thought that was interesting. The features on this project were also very impressive, from Freddie Gibbs, AZ Chike, and Ab-Soul having some great moments on this album, to Devin Malik and Childish Major going absolutely crazy on their verses. But the standout feature for me was Rico Nasty on Pop. She did a great job on the hook and her verse was insane. And the thing is, her verse actually got cut. He teased a snippet of this track a while back and she had an entire 16 before. I kinda wish he kept the whole thing. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about this project. It's a great return to form for Schoolboy Q with lots of hard-hitting bangers and memorable moments. I just hope that we don't have to wait another 5 years for the next album. My favorite tracks on here were Yearn 101, Pop, and Thank God For Me. Next project, Lil Tecca, Plan A. This project was a very pleasant surprise. I remember back in 2019 when Lil Tecca dropped Ransom and took the world by storm. He had a few more hits in the following years, but he kept it pretty low-key for a bit. But this return with Tech and Plan A for the past 2 years, I think this definitely puts Lil Tecca back on the limelight and show people that he's probably one of the best melodic rappers out right now. Plan A is just full of these super smooth melodic trap beats that Lil Tecca just effortlessly glides over, creating some excellent top lines and making some very catchy earworms. And Lil Tecca sounds so much more mature now. Lots of this project is about him navigating life and being true to himself, focusing on what's important to him. And I feel like he's got a good head on his shoulders and sounds a bit wiser than his age. But hey, growth was bound to happen when we were introduced to him at 15 years old. I also love the addition of new jazz-styled beats across this record. It's the perfect natural progression of what I think Lil Tecca should sound like in 2024, and not just him rehashing the same type of beats that he would have rapped on in 2019. Huge props to the guys over at Internet Money for producing this album. They did an incredible job. And even though this album is 18 songs long, it doesn't drag at all. All of the tracks are pretty brief, averaging about 2.5 minutes each, and each track beautifully transitions into each other, keeping that energy up. And I love that the ending of All the Time transitions into Taste, meaning you can listen to this album in one big loop. I think it's great that Lil Tecca was able to make a project where I didn't really get bored of his performance. And it's pretty impressive considering there's only one feature on this album, which Don Toliver does great on. Plan A is just a silky smooth, cool and clean melodic rap record with lots of catchy vocals and excellent production. My favorite tracks on here were Taste, Never Last, and Bad Time. This one might come as a surprise, but I gotta talk about an album I just couldn't stop listening to. Glorious by Glorilla. In the 50 years that hip hop has existed, I don't think it's a hot take to say that it's been predominantly a boys' club. Of course, there's been great women rappers in every generation, but I think we're finally at a point where women can have their own space in hip hop and mainstream media can have more than one popular woman rapper at a time. And for the past 6 years or so, there's been a huge influx of women rappers that are really good, and it feels like we get more ladies that make a splash each year than we do men. And I think Glorilla and this album are products of that. Glorious is a pretty fun and entertaining album where Glorilla can simply talk her shit. It's all about her keeping it real, staying true to herself, and not letting people wrong her. It's teeming with personality and tons of attitude. She gets on these beats with a very aggressive delivery and flow, and I think her Memphis accent adds a lot to this experience.
That's a beautiful thing.
She got a beautiful spirit.
Beautiful spirit.
I'm also a big fan of her ad-libs. My favorite one is when she says, uh-huh. It kind of reminds me of Daisy from Mario. This album sticks to a lot of Glorilla's strengths sonically, with those hard, blaring horn samples and these very short and thumpy 808s that give her beats some crazy bounce. And the songs on this project get me so hype. I don't know how to describe it, but I feel like standing like a kangaroo when a Glorilla song comes on. And when it comes to samples, I really enjoy the track What You Know About Me and how it flips Wipe Me Down. Definitely a highlight on this album. This album also has a bit of a gospel undertone with the vocal harmonies from Friday on the outro Queen of Memphis, and some gospel overtones on the track Rain Down on Me with Maverick City Music and Kirk Franklin.
You heard that new Kirk Franklin?
Now, I'm not exactly a religious person, but I do have a huge respect for gospel music. It's a beautiful and uplifting genre with incredible harmonies and vocal performances, and I'm glad that Glorilla was able to express her appreciation and faith in a way that includes notable gospel artists. And with a name like Gloria Hallelujah Woods, I'm not surprised she's going to express her faith in the Lord. There's also some great features on here, like Money Long, Sexy Red, Lotto, and Megan Thee Stallion, all giving great verses that bounce off of Glorilla perfectly. And overall, this album just makes me feel like a bad bitch. Its hard-hitting beats and Glow's husky and aggressive vocals make for a great time. And paired with Glow's rags to riches story, her palpable faith, and her beautiful spirit, it leaves you feeling glorious. My favorite tracks on here are How I Look, TGIF, and What You Know About Me.
No, Adam. I thought it was a whole female, dog.
I fell in love with this album as soon as I heard it. At number 5, I'm talking about
K-Tronada, classic, timeless.
What damn?
This album is just K-Tronada doing what he does best, making the grooviest, bounciest, soulful dance music you've ever heard. These songs are made with these hard-hitting drums, using a mix of live instrumentation and drum programming, and combines it with these lush and spacey synth melodies and vocals. It's that perfect, groovy, chill, and danceable vibe that K-Tronada is known for. His production style is truly one of a kind. It's kind of hard to describe. It's like a sample-based disco, soul, funk, house R&B with a focus on African drum rhythms. And despite having his hands in a bunch of different genres, he pulls it off so beautifully. I can't think of another artist that makes music like him, and he really does feel like he's in a lane of his own. Timeless also has K-Tronada reuniting with a lot of his past collaborators like Anderson .Paak, Charlotte Day Wilson, and Duran Bernard, and even linking up with artists for the first time like Childish Gambino, Don Toliver, and Pink Panthers. And I think it's insane, he got Pink Panthers on a 3-minute song. He did the impossible, and all of these features sound perfect on these beats, fitting right at home on his production. Lots of the vocal performances feel very vibrant and bold, but they also have this ethereal quality to it, using a tasteful amount of delay and reverb on them and these wide pan backup vocals. The mixing on this project is chef kiss. I think my favorite vocal performance on this album is from Duran Bernard on the track Weird. I love his eclectic vocal runs and energetic singing and rap style, definitely a standout performance here. From start to finish, this album feels like an intimate house party. Each song is so groovy and catchy and has a great sense of energy, just makes me want to get up and dance. Hell, you could put this project on shuffle and still have a great time. The drums are infectious, the basses hit hard, the melodies are hypnotic, and the vibe is impeccable. A timeless artist with a timeless album. My favorites on here were Snap My Finger, Witchy, and Weird. This project should be no surprise on anyone's top albums from last year. Alligator Bites Never Heal by Doechii. I've been a Doechii fan for quite a while now. I heard Spooky Coochie back when that dropped, and I really enjoyed tracks like Persuasive and Swamp Bitches with Rico Nasty, which really turned me into a fan of her work. And this newest project is just incredible. Alligator Bites Never Heal is a multifaceted mixtape just filled with personality, charm, witty bars, and good-ass music. And on this project, she talks about many aspects of her life, from her past relationships to her recent rise to fame, the expectations that are put on her, and her just trying to find the time to process it all. I love how this project jumps around from different styles of hip-hop, going from trap bangers to jazzy soul sample flips to Miami bass music, and of course, boom bap. Boom bap! You can tell by her rhyme schemes, beat selection, and flows that she's been a student of the game for many years and wears her inspirations proudly. Doechii shows off a ton of vocal range on this project as well, with some zany vocal inflections on tracks like Skip and Hide and Seek, fast-paced rap flows on Nissan Altima, introspective lyricism on Death Roll, and some gorgeous singing on tracks like Beverly Hills and Wait. She's showing off a lot of versatility on this mixtape, and I like that it's not versatility for the sake of being versatile, but it's to highlight the different attitudes and emotions she's feeling throughout the mixtape. We also got to talk about how funny Doechii is on this project. I just love how she constructed Denial is a River as like a conversation between her and a character from one of her older EPs, and I just love the banter they have between each other. And I'm not gonna lie, just the title itself, Denial is a River, is hilarious.
Denial is a river in Egypt. Your husband is dead.
I also want to talk about the track Boom Bap.
Boom bap.
And how it's such a funny response to people saying they want to hear her really rap. But instead, she is scatting and singing Get Top on the Phone in heavy auto-tune. Like, it feels like a troll, but the song has a lot of interesting moments in it, like the drums that come in when Doechii actually does start rapping, and the crazy Get Top on the Phone choir section near the end of the track. It kind of sounds like a meme song, but it still shows some creative ideas that are well executed. Speaking of boom bap, I want to talk about the 5-song run at the beginning of this mixtape. The intro is very hypnotic and smooth, Bullfrog has this low-key sinister vibe to it, Boiled Peanuts has Cypress Hill and Diggable Planets written all over it, Denial is a River has some very witty rhymes and storytelling on it, and Catfish has some of my favorite vocal delivery on this project. And shout out to another producer here on YouTube, Mai, for getting a producer credit on this mixtape. Great work, my friend. And yeah, this project is just so good. The lyricism is strong, the production is strong, the vocal performances are strong. This project is very ambitious with its various material, but nothing comes off as half-baked. And if this is just the mixtape, I can't wait for the album. My favorite tracks on here are Death Roll, Denial is a River, and Nissan Altima. Coming in at number 3, it's none other than the Black Ben Carson, the Bandana Bandit, Mr. Scaring the Maidens Away, the one and only JPEG Mafia, with his album I Lay Down My Life For You. JPEG Mafia dropped this newest project that is a balls-to-the-wall, high-energy sonic assault, filled with crazy sample flips, crunchy drums, glitchy piercing synths, and JPEG just rapping about whatever the hell he feels like. This project, much like his other projects, feel like you're getting pelted in the head with millions of sounds, which sounds like an insult. But the way Peggy constructs his beats and pulls out these crazy rap flows on these unusual samples, it strangely works. I'm actually fascinated by Peggy's production style. His music is truly unpredictable. On this album, the songs never end the way they begin. Each track takes you on a journey, flipping from genre to genre, while Peggy confidently raps without missing a beat. I think the standard JPEG Mafia listening experience starts off with you like, the fuck am I listening to?
What the fuck is this?
And then it turns into, wait, hold on, this is the greatest song I've ever heard. The mixing on this project really helps sell that hyperactive nature of it as well. The synth basses, rock and roll drums, soul sample flips, and random EDM bass drops don't sound like they go together on paper, but the way the project is mixed with its oversaturated sound and kind of distorted highs makes every aspect of these tracks sound cohesive despite where those sounds come from. The vocal mixing is pretty interesting too. It's very grunge and scratchy with that muffled, distorted tone and slap delay. I think it gives his songs that raw and indie vibe he's going for. And I am no stranger to JPEG Mafia's work. I've listened to many of his older projects and I like a majority of them. I feel like he ups the ante with each project and does something different and exciting every time. And I really like the direction this album took with its sound selection. It's got lots of rock and metal influence throughout its runtime, which I think fits the alt hip-hop style that Peggy makes. I think the electric guitars and heavy drums work to his strength, allowing him to use that rock influence to help match his energy. I especially love those guttural grunts he does on songs like Ex-Military. It sounds like something I'd expect from a punk band. The features on this album are few and far apart, but when they do show up, they are impactful. I love the Vince Staples feature on New Black History, and I like that they use the same Future sample that Vince uses on Summertime '06. I thought that was really cool. Buzzy Lee's performance is very haunting and beautiful. It's a great palate cleanser from the rest of the project. And JPEG Ultra with Denzel Curry is everything I'm looking for. Like, oh man, the song fucking rocks, bro. Denzel Curry just goes crazy on his verse, rapping over this insane horn sample. And I love how the sample changes and gets these epic strings when Peggy starts rapping, and it sounds like a crime thriller movie. And the acoustic third verse is a very nice closer to the song. This track alone, 10 out of 10, masterpiece. Despite the chronically online nature of his production, I think Peggy does a good job grounding this project with relatable and realistic topics, like working hard, making a name for yourself, staying away from weirdos, and protecting your peace. And I think it's funny how the guy who objectively makes the weirdest style of hip-hop has to remind you that some of you niggas is weird. From the crazy, hard-hitting production and intense vocal performance to the more stripped-down samples and introspective lyrics, this album shows everyone that you can be weird without being a weirdo. My favorite tracks on here are Vulgar Display of Power, Sin Miedo, and JPEG Ultra. Let's shed light on my second favorite album of 2024, Chromacopia is a pretty exciting and beautiful album that puts all of Tyler's unique qualities and tastes as an artist front and center while he sings and raps his heart out on these hard bass drums and gorgeous chord progressions. This is a very personal album from Tyler as well, talking about his paranoia, his life outside of the music, and his personal relationships. And he tastefully weaves these topics together by using conversations of his own mom throughout the project. Her parts are used to set the tone throughout its runtime and to highlight the main themes of each track. This album's production is probably some of my favorite from Tyler so far, and I think the first song, Saint Chroma, is the perfect representation of everything you'll see on this project. I love its slow and calm beginning that gets set in motion by the rhythmic stomping and then the first verse, and as the song goes on, it grows and adds more elements like the synth chord progression and the incredible church-like choir section on the hook. The first half of this song feels like a long, lit fuse that's getting closer and closer to the climax, followed up by the beat drop that comes in and hits like a goddamn bomb. And I think it's rather funny that the bomb of the track comes in when Daniel Caesar says fire. I also love the drum rhythms in this album. They sound very Tyler the Creator-esque, but they also bring a different vibe that we're not used to. And one of those drum beats that I absolutely love is on the song Darling I. This song is just so bouncy and groovy, and those mouth click sounds give me some serious Pharrell vibes. And tracks like Sticky and Thought I Was Dead bring some hard-hitting horns and a drumline style percussion that was plucked straight out of a black college majorette, which is amazing because some colleges have started covering Tyler's song. It's like it's gone full circle. Sonically, I feel like this project is a great balance of all the different styles he's been making over the years. Some songs sounding like they could have been on earlier projects, but with a more mature musical style. For example, Noid gives me a bit of Cherry Bomb vibes with its more punk rock aesthetic. The second half of Like Him kind of reminds me of those long synth solos from Igor. Tyler's part on Thought I Was Dead has a similar edge that you can find on Call Me If You Get Lost, and the flanged guitars and slow and heavy drums on Judge Judy remind me of some of the B-sides from Flower Boy. It's like he took those concepts from those earlier albums and then reinforced them and made them better here. But I don't know, maybe I'm reaching. As much as I love Tyler's production on Chromacopia, I think his writing is also as sharp as ever on here. I love his passion on tracks like Ratata. I think Tyler is at his best when he's in his braggadocio bag. And the storytelling on Hey Jane is really engaging and interesting. I love how the verse 2 on this track changes perspective, but also keeps the same rhyme scheme from verse 1. And I was just floored by the outlining of events on Judge Judy. It's such a personal tale he tells with a very bleak ending, and then the song just ends with an instrumental outro, and you just gotta sit there with your thoughts on it. Absolute cinema. I feel like an underlying theme of this album is self-acceptance, and I think some of that sentiment is expressed on the song I Killed You. Tyler talks as if the song is about a person or something, but it's really about his relationship with his hair, which is a very important topic for black people. For a long time, black people have had a certain expectation with their hair, like black women using chemical relaxers or heat to straighten it all the time, and black men having to keep their hair short all the time. And I love that for the past few years, more black people, including Tyler, have embraced natural hairstyles. Personally, I relate a lot to this track. I am also a bit of a nigga myself, and growing up, I was always known as the kid with the afro. I would overhear other adults talk about my hair, saying that I should cut it when I get older. I remember them saying how unsightly it was and how it doesn't look professional, which I thought was a wild thing to say about a kid, but that's besides the point. Just the notion that my hair was a problem that needed to be fixed simply because I wore it the way it naturally comes out of my head really does mess with your self-esteem and your perception of beauty. But at my big age of 27, I now have locks and I love it. And I'm glad there's so many other people embracing their hair. You'll love to see it. And as always, the features on Tyler's album are fantastic. I love how Tyler adds his features as true moments throughout the album and not just empty verse punch-in type of features. Each feature is consistent with the topic at hand and either adds to the theme or helps Tyler sell an emotion. One of the standouts to me is Doechii on Balloon. I think she's amazing on this track and is probably the best rap feature on the project. Other artists like Daniel Caesar, Lola Young, and Childish Gambino add some amazing and angelic vocals, also enhancing the experience that Tyler brings. We also get another great Lil Wayne verse on Sticky. I love that Wayne always shows out for Tyler on a project, and Playboi Carti even shows up for this album, but only on the vinyl version of it. There he go again, not dropping music on streaming. Drop music everywhere but on Spotify. And I think the government-mandated Tizo touchdown feature is actually really great. I love how he's used throughout the song, and he sounds incredible on the bridge of Darling I. Personally, I think this album serves as a subversion of all of the Tyler the Creator-isms that we're used to. This is Tyler's first project to not drop on the every 2-year schedule that he's always done. This is his first project to not have song number 10 be a two-parter. And lastly, this is Tyler's first project where he doesn't have a persona. He isn't Goblin or Wolf Haley or Cherry Bomb or Flower Boy or Igor or Sir Baudelaire. He is simply Tyler. Which checks out, you know? He himself is wearing a mask of himself with a big ol' spotlight on himself on the album cover, so of course this project is going to be about him. And part of me feels a little uncomfortable listening to this album because it is so personal. At points of this album, it feels like I'm reading someone's very private diary entries, and it makes me feel kind of weird to know so much about a person. Like, I respect that he is so truthful, and I'm grateful that he's open to talk about these topics, but it's kind of like learning that your favorite idol that you've put on a pedestal is as painfully human as you. Like, I didn't know you were struggling like this, you know? Like, I thought you had life figured out. But I guess that's what I respect the most about this project. He put everything on the table and is just shamelessly speaking from the heart. To me, this album stands as a beautiful piece of art that reminds everyone that you can take a good look at yourself, imperfections and all, and love yourself for who you are. Do your thing and keep shining. My favorite tracks on here are Saint Chroma, Thought I Was Dead, and Darling I. My favorite project of 2024 should be no surprise. It is Kendrick Lamar's GNX. Kendrick had an electrifying 2024, dropping a surprise verse on Metro's album that shook the game up, going toe-to-toe with one of the biggest rappers ever and coming out as the victor, and even doing the pop-out concert on Juneteenth, bringing a huge spotlight to his city and his friends. He had a lot of eyes on him last year, and as he dropped his surprise album, people were speculating what he's going to do next. Was he going to do something conceptual? Is he going to rap on more bangers? Is he going to take more shots at other rappers? And for the most part, yeah, he kind of does. But he also made an album giving thanks to his friends, family, and city. To explain why I like GNX so much, I gotta talk about Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers real quick. Listen, I know we're talking about GNX, but bear with me for a second. Let me put y'all on game. I actually spoke to a friend about this album. He wanted to know how I felt because he thought that Mr. Morale was a bit of a letdown. And to be honest, I can kind of see where he's coming from. Sonically, this project is a lot more low-key and not as exciting as his other work, so it can be a bit of a slow burn. And the topics on Mr. Morale are very heavy and won't be to everyone's liking. This album is vulnerable and traumatic. It is not an easy listen, but I understand why it exists. The whole point of this album is to end generational trauma. By confronting your trauma head-on and not stepping over the big issue, it allows you to acknowledge and grow past that trauma so you don't perpetuate those same issues to your kids and to their kids. So I get why Kendrick wanted to make this in the first place. To me, this project was meant to unite people using grief. Even though I think the content on Mr. Morale is really important, I think the overall presentation of these ideas can be a bit tough to stomach. Like if you grew up in a dysfunctional house, you probably don't want to hear songs like We Cry Together. I think it's intentional that it's kind of an uncomfortable track, and I appreciate Kendrick's vision to even want to make something like that, but I'm not surprised when people say they don't want to hear it. I think that's why people like albums like Good Kid, Mad City or Damn so much. Those albums can have complex ideas while still making fresh and upbeat music. Those albums hide the medicine in the meat and potatoes, while Mr. Morale is simply strong medicine. With that being said, I feel like Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers is the album that Kendrick needed, but GNX is the album the people need.
It's not enough.
This album fucking rocks. Kendrick feels as invigorated as ever on GNX. He gets on these tracks and just pops off, hitting each song with memorable bars and insane energy. Each song shows Kendrick's incredible flows, impeccable pen, and unshakable character, all wrapped up in some great production filled with hard-hitting beats and beautiful sample flips. Production-wise, I'm a huge fan of this album. It's got a lot of styles it's juggling, going from calm yet serious stripped beats to hard-hitting upbeat West Coast bangers. Each beat adds so much style to Kendrick's verses as he feeds off its energy. The beats themselves are just as important as Kendrick is. I really love the track Squabble Up and how it flips When I Hear Music by Debbie Deb. I love how the sample is kind of tucked away in the beginning and slowly shows more of itself, like the lead synth melody and the synth bass rhythm, while also adding more synth elements that weren't in the original song but still fit the vibe. The way samples are used on GNX is just so good, showing real care in taking a sample and creating something new with it, especially in an era of music where some artists sample by just playing the hooks of an already extremely popular song and calling it a day. Like, it's okay, you can add more to a sample than just the drums. Speaking of drums, we gotta talk about the track TV Off. DJ Mustard's production is incredible here, making these knocking bass lines that just punch through your speakers. And I love the simple yet effective string sample that's being used. It just makes such a catchy earworm. This song scratches the same itch as Not Like Us for me, but I think the production hits a little bit harder here. And the beat switch on this track is crazy. The horn sample sounds huge and anthemic, and Kendrick delivers one of the most memorable producer tags in years. This is probably going to sound crazy at the Super Bowl. And as far as hype tracks go, this is the hypest of hype tracks. I also love the slower and groovier tracks on GNX, like Dodger Blue. I love the 80s throwback style it has with its gated snare drums, plucky synth basses, and these super sweet ambient vocals that just sit in the background. It kind of gives me some G-Funk vibes. To me, this song sounds like a summer sunset. Lyrically, Kendrick is letting loose a lot on this album, not really having a ton of hidden meanings or double entendres throughout the project. For a lot of it, he is speaking from the heart and telling it like it is, which I kind of appreciate, especially in a time where media literacy feels like it's fading away. Maybe it was better for Kendrick to just keep it direct to get his point across. I've seen some people talk about how on Mr. Morale, Kendrick said he started going to therapy, but on GNX, he sounds like he became a worse person, which is hilarious. To me, he sounds like someone who went to therapy and learned how to set boundaries. He's not bottling things in, he's airing his grievances, and he's standing on business. And that mindset created some great quotables on this album. Some of my favorites being, nigga feel like he entitled cause he knew me since a kid. Bitch, I cut my granny off if she don't see it how I see it. Or, bitch with him and some bitch in him, that's a lot of bitch. That's funny to me. Kendrick, especially after his last diss battle, has taken it upon himself to kind of crusade against infiltrators in the culture, weeding out those who use it to seek attention and exploit it for their own personal gain. He wants people to speak about this, get involved, and watch that party die. And he had a ton of great features to help him get that point across. I love how Dodie Six and Kendrick are going back and forth with each other on Hey Now. Lefty Gunplay has a great closer on TV Off saying crazy, scary, spooky, hilarious. And Hit a J3's verse on GNX uses such a sick flow. And I love that every single feature Kendrick has on this album is from LA or the greater LA area, giving this album a homegrown, all-American vibe to it. The only exception is Kendrick's longtime collaborator, SZA, who is amazing on Luther and really brings the project home on Gloria. An absolutely incredible performance. I'm gonna put on my speculation spectacles for a second and talk about what I think GNX represents. And listen, this is just what I think. I'm probably wrong, but this is just an artistic analysis, okay? Bear with me for a second. Let me put y'all on game. To me, this project is about legacy. Everything from Kendrick's feelings about his mural being defaced to how he feels connected to influential musicians while rapping on the same sample his biggest influence rapped on, to reminiscing about the times he had with his friends and loved ones. Throughout the album, Kendrick is paying homage to everything that made him who he is and protecting the legacy of everything he holds dear. But why the name GNX? Out of everything he could have named this album, he chose an 80s muscle car. And not just a Grand National, but specifically the GNX. Maybe it's a symbol of success. Maybe it's Kendrick's drive to maintain his legacy. But in my interpretation, I think the album shares the same legacy as the car. They are one in the same. The Buick Grand National Experiment, or GNX, was a pretty amazing car. It has a sleek and simple interior with a powerful turbocharged V6 engine, making well over 300 horsepower. It was one of the fastest production cars ever made, beating all of its contemporaries, outclassing every single American muscle car, and even spanking Ferraris. The GNX can even go toe-to-toe with one of the greatest sports cars ever made, the Porsche 911 Turbo, which is incredible considering this car doesn't look all that powerful. And that sentiment can kind of be said about the album. At face value, it doesn't really seem all that impressive, but once you get into it, this thing has got some get-go. In a constantly changing world where time waits for no one, we can always look back on the legacy of GNX. And what we see is a humble yet powerful all-American classic, leagues ahead of its competition. Oh, bro, he's glazing, bro. He's glazing. Look at him, he's glazed. Shut up. This surprise album is an incredible victory lap for Kendrick Lamar and probably one of my favorite albums from Kendrick to date. And if I were to rank Kendrick's albums, I would probably rank them like this if you were wondering. My favorite tracks on here are Dodger Blue, TV Off, and Heart Part 6. Whew, and that is it. Yeah, this is probably the longest video I've ever made on this channel and probably my favorite script I've ever written too. I feel like I truly talked about everything I wanted to while also keeping it pretty concise and, showing a little bit more of the things that I like. I've been wanting to be a little bit more personal on the channel, letting you guys know that, hey, at the end of the day, I am just a guy that makes music. And also, real quick, we're going to do a lightning round of other albums that I really liked. I just didn't have enough time to talk about it. Lightning round, let's go. 3 by Kari is really, really good. Short and Sweet by Sabrina Carpenter has some really clever writing. Brat is great. I've been bumping that. Joey Valence and Bray, No Hands, really fun. Skrillex, Quest for Fire, that didn't come out in 2024, but I listened to it then and it's really good. And lastly, West Side by Anonymous. Really cool, multifaceted project. I really enjoyed this one. But yeah, that's everything I could think of off the top of my head. There you have it. Thank you for watching. Thank you, patrons. You guys are the best. Please consider joining my Patreon if you like what I do. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.